Hello, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. Today I'm going to show you some ideas for how to use some of your favorite pattern papers on the background of a layout. I'm starting off with this set of chipboard frames that came in the Take Me Home kit. I really want to use some of these, so I specifically printed up some photos that I thought would work well. I am sitting down today and I'm actually going to scrapbook 3 pages at once. This process video is going to be the first of those 3 pages, and then subsequent videos will cover the other 2 pages that I made. So I have all of these photos printed out, and that one just isn't going to work with that frame, but this one works really, really well. So I'll put that aside, and the other ones, I have some other ideas for how to use. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that. But for now, I know I'm going to start with these 2 photos. They're black and white photos from 2 different years of my younger daughter in the kitchen making various things. And so I've pulled out a couple of ingredients or supplies that I think will work really well with this page. I'm going to start by adhering the photos to the frames. I'm just using some regular tape runner, and as you saw, I added the tape runner to the back of the frame, and then I just touched it to the photo. I centered it up so that it was exactly the way I wanted it, or lined it up so that it was exactly the way that I wanted it. And then that left little bits of adhesive showing on the back, and I wanted to be able to just freely manipulate it and not worry about it sticking to things. So I just used a powder tool to just dust some powder onto those sticky parts so that the piece, I can handle it the way that I am right now. So my idea for this layout is to use this piece of craft cardstock, which came in the cardstock add-on. It's actually a Swiss dot, so it's got a little bit of texture to it. And I want to layer some of my favorite papers. I started using the Gather kit, or I at least unboxed the Gather kit. So I am aware that this might be one of my last times that I scrapbook with this kit for a while, because I do want to move along and start using the Gather kit. So this is my last chance to use some of these pattern papers for a while. I love these 3 in particular, and so what I'm planning here is to layer them like this. Now, my craft cardstock background paper is actually not 12 by 12. I've already used a piece of it. So this layered paper at the top is going to give me a great opportunity to fill out the size of that craft cardstock. So I'm starting with a scrap of this pink paper. I did have a full sheet of it, but I didn't want to cut into it. So I'm taking this scrap and I'm just tearing off a strip of it. And now I'm also going to tear a strip of this, and wow, that was kind of a lot. So I'm just going to go back and tidy that up a little bit so it wasn't quite so up and down. And then this one I'm going to cut as well. Now I'm going to layer these, so it's actually okay if they're not the right size here, because I can just vary how I'm layering them together to determine how much of them is going to show. But I really like that. I'm going to take these torn edges and just emphasize that they're torn by pulling them up a little bit. And what I'm going to do is actually, I put the glue on the wrong part of that. So it was extending off of that pattern, so it wasn't going to catch it. I don't want a piece of sticky on the back of that while I manipulate it, so I just used my powder tool again to take that off, and it wasn't quite what I was wanting. There was a little bit too much of that stripy pattern showing, and then the second time it was not quite straight. So I'm using my grid mat just to help me add the pieces so that they're mostly straight. They don't have to be perfect because they do have a torn edge, and it looks pretty casual like that, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm using my grid lines on my mat there just to help me guide and place those. And now I have this craft cardstock so that it's aligned with the 0 mark on my grid mat. And then that is the 12-inch line. And oops, it stuck to my hand and moved. But once I have it in place, this is a 12 by 12 piece of paper now. So I've kind of pieced it together to make up a 12 by 12 square. Now I did want to pop this up, and it's a fairly large element, so I'm using my 3M foam adhesive for this. It's just a little bit more of a cost-effective way if you're going to be using a lot of foam. You can also take a piece of fun foam and glue it to the back of your item, and that gives you some dimension as well. I'm definitely going to use those rub-ons on this page and also on the next one. I really want to use them because I love them so much. Now, this story has a cooking theme, so I went straight to the Simple Stories collection here. And I'm going to take a selection of different embellishments from this one. Some of the tags, I think that stove looks really cute there. I'm basically taking some of the embellishments that I wouldn't be able to use on non-cooking themed pages because this one is a cooking themed page, so I might as well use these all up. I have this little cut apart that says Cutie Pie. That's actually from some of the pattern paper. And I am wanting to put a little secondary cluster up in the top left-hand corner. And that's why you might notice that I am taking different pieces and auditioning them up there. Now, I love this little rub-on. I love this embellishment. It comes up in a few different places. There's one in the die cuts, but I'm using the rub-on version. It's a Kitchen Conversions graphic, I guess we'll call it. And I just love how it looks. So I'm going to be putting that down there. And then I love how the scale looks. It looks like it's holding up my frame. And so I'm going to use that as well. I also really love this stamp set. It says all fillings are valid, and it has a piece of pie on it. And that just, I love that statement. I did make it up. I don't know if I'm the first person to come up with that little pun. I'm sure I'm not, but I just thought it up as I was designing the stamp set, and it has turned out to be my very favorite stamp on the whole stamp set from the Take Me Home stamp set. So I am actually going to selectively ink this, and at first I was going to ink it with ink pads, and then I realized, wait a second, these are Stampin' Up! Inks and they have coordinating markers, and it's much easier to selectively ink with a marker. So I'm going to start by trimming that down. It wasn't quite straight, so I trimmed that down a little bit. The two colors I'm using are Poppy Parade, which is an exact match to the reds in this Simple Stories collection. So if you have this Simple Stories collection, make sure you pull out your Poppy Parade ink because it's perfect. Perfect for it. Oh no, I hope I move this up so that you can see it. Yeah, there we go. So I am going to color in the word fillings, and I want it to look kind of like raspberry filling is what I had in mind. And then I'm inking the whole rest of it with this other color, which is called Pecan Pie. And now with these Stampin' Up! Markers, you just have to huff on it. So that's why I changed my angle there so that you could see what I was doing. You basically just take a nice deep breath and on it, and that will just activate it. It will basically, any of that marker element that might have dried on the stamp will remoisten and be ready for stamping. Now, you can't do this with any kind of a marker. I definitely don't do it with an alcohol marker, and you might have to play around. These markers are specifically designed to do this with, so they work. And I know American Crafts used to make a line of markers that were designed for stamping as well. I don't know if they still have that. Now, I did test that out on a piece of scrap paper first, just to see if it was going to stamp the way that I wanted it to, and it did. So now I'm going to use my MISTI tool because I suspect I'm going to have to stamp this twice to get the kind of quality of an image that I'm looking for, because with one stamp, it just stamps a little bit splotchy. So there I go, huffing on it again, and with the first stamp, it does look a little splotchy, as you can see. So I'm just going to go over it again, and I'm just using the side of the marker to color in. Like I'm holding that marker at a very strong angle so that I'm using the side surface of the marker to color. Ooh, I like how that looks. So that looks fantastic, and it actually, as it dries, it clears and smooths out a little bit and looks even better now that it's dry, actually. It looks fine the way it is. So there we have my little top cluster. I just trimmed down one of the die cuts from the Simple Stories embellishment set that came in the kit. I'm also going to use this flare badge with the home on it. That also came in the kit. I think everything on this page came in the kit. I ran out of adhesive, so I didn't want to run and try to find a refill, so I just grabbed my ATG for the rest of this page. Now I'm finally ready to stick this frame and the two photos down. So I pulled off the backing and placed it right there. And now that my frame is in place, I know where I'm going to want to put my rub-on, so I'm just using the popsicle stick that comes in the set of rub-ons to adhere those so that they stick to the background paper. And I'm being pretty cautious as I do this because it is textured paper. This is a Swiss dot paper. And so I'm just wanting to be very, very cautious about it. I just moved my camera angle here. Sorry for all the jumpiness, but I thought that this angle might do a better job of showing you how the rub-offs come, and there's a little bit there, so I just laid it back down in exactly the same spot and rubbed again, and it came right off. Now I'll place this scale so that it looks like it's holding up my frame. I love that. And it's also nestling in with the conversions rub-on as well, so I really like that. I had that ticket was left over and it had a little bit of a torn edge on it, so I just fixed that up. Now I'm going to make these tickets look like they're curved, and to do that, to hold the space once it's in my album, I just used some dimensional adhesive. These are the 3mm thickness dimensional adhesives, and they're tabs from American Crafts. And I just placed them like that and then used ATG to just stick the other parts down to the background paper. And then with the other one, I just used ATG and pulled up the edges so that it looked like it was curling up a little bit. Now this little piece here, I'm going to add this flare badge to, just to fill some of that negative space that's on the little journaling piece. And for that flare badge, they're a little bit concave, so I find using a 1mm foam tab is enough for that to hold, but I do have to press it from behind to make it stick. You could also use the 3mm kind that would just lift it up off the page just a tiny, tiny little bit. Now the stamp set this month, the Take Me Home stamp set that I've already used for that pie stamp, it has these cute little splotches on it, and I am going to be using these splotches all the time. I love splotches. And there are 3 different ones, so it's not going to look like exactly the same splotch every time, which looks a little bit manufactured and contrived. So I like this randomness of the 3 different splotch shapes. I stamped it in the same pecan pie ink from Stampin' Up! That I already used on the pie up above, but it stamps a little bit more richly when you're doing it with the stamp from the ink pad. And now I do want to put dates on these, especially where these 2 photos took place with such a big time gap between them. I didn't want it to look like they were right after one another or anything. So I just used StazOn because I'm stamping on a slick surface, and I used my roller date stamp, but I only inked the year 2021 on the right and 2022 on the left. I'm just pulling out, I had a couple of punched butterflies from another layout in there, pulling those paper punched shapes out of my sequin mix, and I'm just going to scatter my confetti in these 3 different places, and then I'm going back and I'm basically kind of making it look a little bit more random by selectively replacing. I'm also flipping over any that landed upside down. And I basically want to make sure, especially the brown ones, they have a lot of impact, so I want them to be spread out. And now I'm using my Art Glitter Dries Clear Designer glue and my pickup stick to adhere these confetti pieces down to my page. And as you can see, that's pretty good going with that, with those 2 tools, like with that tool and then the glue. And the glue does have a fine tip metal tip on it, which is an extra purchase, but well worth it because that glue is amazing. I'm fussing a little bit here with these sequin pieces, and it's looking a little bit contrived, like it's not, doesn't look quite random, but once I add some splatters, that will help. I find that if you're feeling it's easy to obsess over the placement of these sorts of little details of where you're going to put your little sequin pieces or wood veneer or whatever it is that you're scattering. But one trick that I have for making your little clusters of these small little things, whether enamel dots or these confetti pieces, my trick is to add some actual splatter to your page. Here I'm using Heidi Swap Gold Color Shine, which is my favorite thing to add splatter with. When in doubt, I like to go with gold splatter because gold splatter works well with almost everything. So as you can see, that adds a actual random component to this page. The confetti pieces were not quite exactly random. So now here there was a lot of little splotches that were coming out of the lid of my mist instead of out of the nozzle, and so I did end up splattering in places that I didn't want to. I picked it up with my little, I think I was using a paper towel there, and it does leave a mark, like you can see the sparkly area where the mist used to be, but it looks okay. I totally could have just left it. I just checked to see if an eraser might rub that off, but it doesn't, so it's fine. As you can see, the sun, not the sun, but my lights there are catching on it. You can see the places that I wiped it off, but that's okay. Now I do have some photos to share with you, but before, just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. They were on the screen just a second ago. Those folks help make this channel happen, so big thanks to all of them. Patrons get early ad-free access to all of my process videos and real-time unedited versions of my videos, as well as a monthly live stream and behind-the-scenes videos and many more perks. Thanks also to you for watching all the way to the end. Let me know in a comment below, what are your favorite ways to get your favorite pattern papers onto a layout? Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Here are some of the places that you can reach me on social media, as well as the website for our kit shop, MercyTiaraKits.com. Here are some other videos that you might be interested in as well. Be sure to check those out and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.